Good evening. Unconfirmed reports say at least 5 more suspects in the kidnapping of Bosini heiress Queenie Law were arrested in Guangdong province over the weekend after fleeing the city with a $28 million ransom. One of the suspects involved in the kidnapping was taken back to the crime scenes today to walk police through what happened. Raymond Yeung reports.
The police convoy arrived at Ao Chi Wan village in Wong Tai Sin at around 10:45 a.m., instantly drawing a large crowd of onlookers. Officers formed a cordon around a blue car believed to be carrying the suspect. After 20 minutes, a man wearing a black t-shirt, black shorts and slippers was taken out of the vehicle. Identified only by his surname Zheng, the 29-year-old from Guizhou province was hooded, handcuffed and on a metal leash. He spoke to a woman, believed to be an interpreter, for a few minutes before returning to the car. He was driven to the next crime scene, Choi Hong MTR station, about 200 meters away. Under police escort, the suspect slowly made his way past Ao Chi Wan wet market before stopping outside a restaurant to tell officers what happened there. At around noon, the man was taken underground into the station, where officers formed a human chain to separate him from commuters. The whole walkabout was filmed by police. The suspect remained calm and spoke in a soft voice throughout the 20-minute walkabout before heading for their next stop, Park Shek Wo village in Sai Kung. Officers sealed off one lane of Clear Water Bay Road. It's believed the gang of kidnappers set up camp somewhere nearby. The man was arrested at Lo Wu border checkpoint on Sunday evening when he tried to return to the mainland with his two-way permit. Later this afternoon, reports surfaced that at least 5 more suspects were arrested around Guangdong province over the weekend. That's contrary to previous reports saying there were a total of 6 kidnappers. The last 2 were caught during a hostile raid in Shenzhen yesterday morning, according to the sources. The sensational case shocked Hong Kong last Tuesday when police mounted a citywide manhunt for the suspects who escaped with $28 million of ransom money. It was later revealed that the abductee was Queenie Law, 29-year-old heiress to the Bosini clothing chain. Law held a brief press conference later to say that she was physically and emotionally unharmed and asked for the public to give her family privacy.
An elderly man will spend 4 months behind bars for lying about his age so he could keep his job. Shi Chao Jen was found guilty last month of obtaining money by deception. He told the court that he wanted to keep on working as a security guard instead of having to retire and rely on Social Security. She managed to work for 7 years after the retirement age of 65, earning $540,000 before he was caught 2 years ago. But the court rejected his plea, saying he committed a serious offence and his clean record had already been taken into account. Finance Chief John Tsang says the local stock market may crash if lawmakers vote down the government's political reform package. And former Chief Executive Tung Chee-hwa has come out for the second time in a week to urge the Pan-Democrats not to veto the reforms.
Making his second appearance in 6 days, Tung Chee-hwa spoke again of his wish to achieve universal suffrage for the chief executive in 2017. Hong Kong's first post-Hanover leader rejected claims that no opposition member would be allowed to stand for election, saying it all depends on the candidate's ability and manifesto. But the vice chairman of China's top political advisory body admitted those who oppose the Communist Party will not have a chance to run for the top job. With Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying away in Boston, it was Finance Chief John Tsang's turn to answer questions before the weekly cabinet meeting. There are now reports that once the reform package is vetoed in LegCo, the stock market will go down with it. Zhang did not rule out such a possibility, saying there is an inseparable relationship between the economy and politics. But he refused to comment on whether it is effective for top officials to promote the campaign on the streets, saying the government will deploy different methods to rally for public support.
The number of mainland visitors over the Labor Day weekend was up, despite new visa measures in Shenzhen. But first, in our roundup of local news, there are more calls to introduce laws for electronic cigarettes. Concerns have been raised over the popularity of shisha smoking and electronic cigarettes among young people. And Health Chief Ko Wing-man says the government is considering introducing rules to control the use of the products. Ko said in some countries, advertisers and marketers target the tobacco products at young people, and this is a huge worry. On a separate issue, Ko said the government will step up checks on 10 ren tea products after leaves in Taiwan were found to contain pesticide. The number of mainland visitors coming into Hong Kong over the Labor Day weekend went up by 13.8%. That's despite visa measures restricting Shenzhen residents to one visit a week to the city. Commerce Secretary Greg So said authorities will be keeping a close eye on visitor numbers. He said although it may seem as though Hong Kong isn't as packed with visitors anymore, the figures recorded tell a different story. Public light bus companies are calling on the government to increase the number of seats inside minibuses to 20 or 24. At a transport panel meeting in Legco this morning, they complained that they can't provide efficient services with the current 16-seaters because of a driver shortage and a rising number of passengers. Transport Under Secretary Yao Xingmu acknowledged the problem, but said he has to consider how increasing seating capacity might affect other means of public transport. At least 12 people have been injured in Mexico after a train slammed into another at a station. And US Muslim groups have distanced themselves from gunmen who opened fire at a controversial contest to draw Muhammad cartoons. Arthur Okiola reports.
Muslim groups in the U.S. are calling for the Department of Justice to investigate the shooting of 2 gunmen by police in Texas at a Muhammad drawing contest. They insist that while they did not support the actions of the gunmen, they argue that organizers of the contest, the American Freedom Defense Initiative, and its leader Pamela Geller, wanted it to happen.
The Muslim community at large in DFW made a collective decision not to attend or even protest Sunday's events in an effort to ignore the hateful actions intended to incite the Muslim community, but also to give an unchallenged space for them to have their event. While we in no way condone the behavior of these criminals that opened fire, and as Americans, we absolutely uphold the right to freedom of expression, we must ask ourselves, at what point does free speech become hate speech, especially when the intention is so clearly to incite a violent response?
Pamela Geller and her ilk thrive on that tiny minority of individuals who react as she hopes they will react to her extremist rhetoric. And she makes money based on that inappropriate reaction.
Geller's organization, which has been listed as a hate group, says the event was to promote freedom of expression.
I just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to all of them.
U.S. President Barack Obama is set to nominate Marine General Joseph Dunford as the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Dunford, a Marine general, will replace Martin Dempsey, who is expected to step down in September. A 38-year veteran, he helped lead forces during the U.S.-led Iraq invasion in 2003, as well as in Afghanistan, when the U.S. sought to withdraw its troops and transfer responsibility to Afghan forces. At least a dozen people were injured in a train crash in Mexico. One train apparently crashed into the other while it was parked at a platform. The accident happened near the city's international airport. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, Prince William and Kate Middleton, stepped out of St. Mary's Hospital and unveiled their new daughter, Charlotte Elizabeth Diana. The choice of name for the new daughter, who was born on Saturday, honors her great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, and her late grandmother, Princess Diana, as well as her grandfather.
It's got a lot of royal connections. Most importantly, it's Charles. He said he wanted a granddaughter. Now he has a granddaughter, and she is named the feminine version of Charles. That's Charlotte.
She's fourth in line to the British throne after Charles, her father, and her brother George. Arthur Urquiola, ETV News.
US President Barack Obama says poverty, a lack of opportunities and education helped spark a recent string of violent protests across America. He says more jobs for minorities can help tackle the issue and prevent tension.
With a little over a year until the end of his presidency, Barack Obama appeared on a U.S. talk show to discuss a string of race-related anti-police protests, most recently in Baltimore. He admitted there are parts of America that appear to have been forgotten when it comes to things like jobs and decent schooling.
What you have are pockets of poverty, lack of opportunity, lack of education, all across this country. And too often we ignore those pockets until something happens.
Protests over the death of 25-year-old African-American Freddie Gray from injuries he suffered while in police custody descended into rioting in the city. This led to a week-long curfew being imposed that has only just been lifted. The president said creating more job opportunities for minorities was a way to tackle the sense of helplessness many communities feel.
How can we send a message to young people of color and minorities, particularly young men, saying your lives do matter, we do care about you, but we're going to invest in you before you have problems with the police, before there's the kind of crisis we see in Baltimore.
But Obama's efforts to create more jobs over the years haven't been very successful, and despite his criticism of apparent police brutality, it still seems to be happening on a regular basis. Earlier in the day, Obama announced the launch of a nonprofit organization based on a White House plan to increase employment opportunities for young minorities. But the president also had time to joke about life after his time in office with the show's host, David Letterman, who is also set to retire soon.
Well, I was thinking you and me, we could play some dominoes together. And,
dominoes.
you know,
all right.
We can, go to the local Starbucks and swap stories.
I want to say something.
Arthur Urquiola, ATV News.
Moving on to sport, Arsenal are piling the pressure on Manchester City for a second-place finish in the English Premier League after beating Hull. Arsenal